Hold on, wait
Uh,
a second. I don't have permission to stream live. Okay, go ahead.
all right, all right. We're having fun. We're in here, man. This is gonna be some exciting times. But what ends up happening is my name is Brother Stephen Barrett, held for St. Mary's last number 4, and I'm a member and panelist of Esoteric Lighthouse. And so we're getting ready to have a lot of fun here this evening. It's going to be a year in review of 2022. You know, it came, it went, it taught us a lot of, but we had a lot of fun. So what I want to do really quickly is introduce our panelists as well as who we are as a group. So Esoteric Lighthouse, we're a group of free and accepted Masons focused on the esoteric, occult, and philosophical lessons which is found in Freemasonry. So, this being a public forum, it is not a legal interpretation or statement of any Grand Lodge or district or local Masonic body. Any views and opinions that you see from any of the panelists or anyone speaking is solely their own, and they do not represent any of the Grand Lodge, district, or local Masonic bodies or views of its officials, to which our panelists hold membership. So, without further ado, I'm gonna get right into it. So I want to introduce some of our fantastic people that's gonna be helping us here today. We have Brother Malone, then we got Brother Bailey, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the future guy that you got to know, Christopher Leonard, and then we got the I can't words can't even describe how this man right here, this is my guy right here, Michael Williams out of Texas. So what we do
Hey.
here, Mike, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to you. I'm gonna let you get started. I'm gonna go ahead and crack some jokes, have some fun, and we're gonna enjoy this review.
All right, good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the year in review of Esoteric Lighthouse for 2022, going into 2023. Yeah, so we had a lot of fun this year. We had one of my favorite episodes. I want to talk about first, starting off, was that Lambdoma episode with Brother John B. Love. That Lambdoma episode was probably one of my top favorite episodes of all time because the mathematics and science behind it, and just understanding the science behind the tetragrammaton and the, the the theory behind numbers from 1 through 0 and 1 to 10 being masculine and feminine in numbers. I never took that into perspective into my studies, but when he when he said it and he mentioned it, I saw it, and because everything actually has to be active or a passive principle, or masculine or feminine. So those numbers, taking that into consideration, one side going down the left side being passive or feminine, and one side going down the right side being active, which is masculine. It's the exact same principle as the two pillars. So, just talking about that episode, that blew my mind.
No, not. I'm about to jump in real quick because the one that blew me away with that episode was the fact that we all know that like anything with like coding, computers, or anything like that, we know mathematically that's we know there's some math involved. I didn't realize that some of the security codes and the way that things are programmed follows that same structure. When you look at that triangle, like you were talking about, Mike, when you go up the left, right, when you add those numbers up, I did a little bit further research and dig into it, like your debit card number, like they have to add up to a specific like number, and that's how they know like right away if like a 4 is for like Visa, 5 is for MasterCard, the beginning numbers. But that's how you know it's an accurate number. Like they can verify right away. They use the same principle. So to think of something that's been in existence this long, that's the foundation of like what we see on our computers, software systems, things of that nature, kind of just blew me away. So that was like, yeah, that one was fire. Like I still have to watch that a couple times because I still need some stuff to learn from it. But that one definitely was an eye opener for me personally.
And on that
Yeah,
same episode, we look at, just the lambdoma, we also apply that to the tetractys. And these are the building blocks almost of creativity. And speaking to how we find this in data, most data sets are in some form of some square root of 2. So 2 to the second, 2 to the third power, 2 to the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. And we find that in how we utilize data, like again in computers. So it's amazing how this is applicable on so many levels. If or you just take the time to understand it, you can apply it almost any facet.
right. Yeah, and so based on that, you take those principles of the lambdoma and you find the principles of pi. Pi goes into square roots, and then the sacred geometry, the flower of life, and things like that. You start breaking these things down, and and at the beginning, at the beginning and the end, it starts with one thing: the point within the circle. It's that dot, that circle, and that dot. You're on a line, then getting a circumference, a root, then you doing an outward measurement, and then you're going back and you're trying to find within, finding all those angles, right angles, horizontals, perpendiculars, whatever you want to call it, a particular equation.
Mhm.
And that all, go ahead, bro.
No. I was just gonna say that just further solidifies. I put my stance out that a point within the circle is probably the most prolific Masonic symbol. I know it's not technically a Masonic symbol because it existed beforehand, but as Masons, I would say a point within the circle is probably the most universal. It's the best. I'm gonna talk trash all day long, so I don't care what you think. Put in the comments below when you watch this. Can you please let us know what your favorite Masonic symbol is and why it is the point within the circle? I'd be greatly appreciated. But go ahead, Brother Leonard.
And that goes into that sacred geometry lecture you gave, that it really just showed you the building blocks of creativity. We find geometry in every single thing. And if, just a light look at the lodge, you see geometry there. You walk around the streets of your city, look at these buildings, the way these buildings are set up. You see geometry there. You see triangles, you see squares, you see cubes, you see pentagons, you see pentagrams. You see the point within the circle. You see the flower of life, the seed of life. Just go downtown in these major cities. You see that the people who put a lot of these things in motion, they had some understanding of how sacred geometry is and how it applies to creation, nature, the universe. It just shows you just the capacity for us to understand, and it gives us these tools to which we can further build our understanding. And it's just amazing that all of this is encompassed within our ritual if you just take the time to just read through it and endeavor to understand it, look into it.
Mm, Yeah, and going back to the lambdoma and the sun and the point within the circle, um, talking about alchemy in the same lecture, Brother John B. Love, he pointed out a lot of alchemical symbols as well: salt, sulfur, and mercury. Um, Earth, fire, air, wind, water, all found within the lambdoma, all found within the 72 letters of the Hebrew, or the 72 names of the God in the Hebrew pantheon. Things like that. And it's based on some alchemical practices or alchemical primers of the basic building blocks of life, which is earth, fire, wind, and water. And in Kabbalistic terms, that would be the Sephiroth Malkuth. So, and things like that. He went in on that lecture, just describing um, various aspects of alchemy and how it attributes to the Tetractys, and how it spread throughout different degrees. Even our number system is based on it, and but we fall asleep at the wheel looking at it because we've most of the time we've never been taught. So we have to go back and dig deep, and we have to ask those questions why. Um, and the first question we have to ask is why. Uh, the point within the circle is the first question you should always ask as an imminent apprentice or a new initiate to any system, because the point within the circle is an initiate symbol in most practices across across the initiatic world.
Mm. I'm sorry to monopolize and jump in here, but I'm gonna have to move this to a different topic really quickly, just because you said something in there that kind of spoke to me. I remember when brother Chris Lewis L did his on the Bronze Age, and I think people slept on that because it's something that we don't talk about a lot. I know it was because of our chats, I kind of see some things go on, but looking at the evolution not the evolution, let's look at the migration of civilizations as well as language And Malone, you know I'm gonna tag you in here in a second, bro. So you might as well. He laughing. You might as well get ready. But looking at his lecture he did on the Bronze Age, and he was talking about this connection with the Phoenicians and just this migration. It's something that I think that we have to go back and we have to study, because oftentimes we ask ourselves, like, why? Like, why is this? Why is that? And a lot of the answers are in language. And that's what I took out of what Chris Lewis's lecture from the Bronze Age. Like, a lot of stuff is out of language and culture, just tells us why we do it. You know what I mean? So um now I'm gonna call him because he's my boy, because I have to. But Malone, tell me a little bit about like your experience, what you're talking about, language, the understanding, why it's important to study these things and understand these things from like your travels and what you go, because I think the people can learn a lot from this perspective, you know.
Well, just in general, right? We understand that language has power, right? Like there's a huge difference between calling someone unique and weird, right? Even though they are synonymous, the connotations from the two leave completely different impressions, right? And so when we look at, rituals, or even, if one were to, just think about the passwords, depending on, the houses that they're members of, one thing that is unique is that, if I'm not mistaken, none of them are English. And then in addition to that, there's a huge emphasis on, Semitic languages, or groups of people that might have, spoken Semitic languages. And by that, I mean, these Afro-Asiatic, Asiatic families, or languages that may be Arabic, Hebrew, Amharic, and so these might be, like examples of what we say when we're talking about Semitic languages. But in addition to that, these are also, the languages of many quote unquote divinely revealed texts. The Tanakh, the Injil, the Gospels that were given to Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, the son of Mary, the Quran, being revealed in Arabic. And so we see that there's a level of emphasis that is put on these languages and these people, right? You mentioned the, Phoenicians. The Phoenicians play a huge role in, in other houses. The Levites, you get on, like, so there are different groups of people that belong to similar groups that speak similar languages, that have similar identities that, we can trace back to, common ancestors. And so I think that's kind of like a breadcrumb, right? It's like, if something is in another language, then obviously there's something about that language that gives access to a world, to a culture, to a history, to different practices, to different understandings that, help us improve our own understanding of what it is that we're engaged in. And so on that note, I'll be right back. The baby just woke up. Let me swap out bottles.
You good.
And
Later,
that brings see the emphasis on language. It brings up the conversation of the yod within the triangle, because on one hand it's the point within the circle, but if you just transform that just a little slight transformation, it gives you that yod within the triangle, which we see here within our lodges, which we see on the wall in our consistories, or if you, read the text, you see the decorations and how these rooms are set up, and it brings, what does these words mean? We see these words, we see it as a Semitic language, but are we taking the time to fully understand the significance of the words and how these can transform not just how the text can be applied, but the levels and the depths to which we can unpack these lessons? Because if I only study English, the main language, of course, I'm going to read it and interpret it one way. But if I take the time to just do basic Hebrew studies, or basic Aramaic studies, or basic Arabic studies, it can just unpack and reveal a level of understanding that you can't get if all you focus on is that one language you were born to. And I think it's beautiful that the brother so eloquently just provided how important language is when you're studying these things. And none of these passwords we're using are native to English. So in order for us to utilize these passwords effectively, it would be in our best interest to at least study to start to understand what they mean and how we can use them and what they represent as we transition through these degrees.
But and also, you know, before we switch topics, I want to connect this conversation, this topic with the previous topic, because you all were talking about geometry and sacred geometry and math and so on and so forth. And so when we think about algebra, you know, algebra, all of these terms, alchemy, algebra, you know, these AL, you know, terms, 9 times out of 10 are most likely coming out of the Arabic language. And so even algebra is actually al-jabbar. Jabbar is one of the attributes of Allah. Al-jabbar is the most powerful, that which break downs into pieces. And so even there's a supplication that the Prophet would make. He says, you know, Allahumma ya jabbar ijburni wa rafa'ni. He says, you know, oh Allah, you are al-jabbar. You are the one that breaks people down. You are the one that breaks things into pieces. You are the one that humbles, right? Ijburni, you know, break me wa rafa'ni, and raise me, right? And so even in that, we see that there's a relationship between, you know, the humility that one must exude and how an individual is raised through the ranks as, you know, they exude a certain level of humility. But I brought this up because we see in the language, you know, we say algebra, 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 but we're not having conversations around who even, you know, began to record, you know, these sciences and who those people were and what role did they play in the liberal arts and sciences and in the, you know, the period of enlightenment and in, you know, how a lot of civilizations were developed around these sciences, you know. So it's like, if you don't go to the language, then you'll never arrive at the people. And if you never arrive at the people, then we can never have, you know, like honest conversations around where all of this, you know, is really coming from and how it ties into us, especially as, you know, descendants of Africa Lodge #1. But, you know, that's something else.
See, look, y'all see why we tagged them in. You see, I couldn't go by this topic without having my band go in there. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just gonna go on back onto the point within the circle. Then how Brother Leonard, he switched over and he brought it back to the delta and the yard. Now, you and I have both done a lecture on the delta and the yard in the Royal Arts, and we've also did it in the Scottish Rite. We did a little bit here in ELH, and I know past Master Mike Bailey, that's one of his favorite topics as well. So I want to hear you guys' perspectives first, then I'm going to say something on the triangle yard as well.
There you go. Come on, Bailey. Yep, I'm calling him out. Come on, Bailey. Yeah. Don't, nah. Go ahead on. I'm ready. I got my pen out. Hold on. Let me get my pen and piece of paper. Go ahead.
Boy. All right. So somebody here put the Moors. Okay, we starting. I see. So what was the question again, Mike?
The delta and the yard.
Oh, okay. All right. So, man, I would have to first. I would have to take this into under one understanding thought, will, and action, which are the building blocks for the ethereal. And this is where creation was started, or how the building blocks begin to come together. Now, once you take that, now you are manifested. But you can't be manifested until you actually hit the 4, which is, you know, the 4 elements. And put 3 and 4 together, you come up with 7. Okay, so it's first starting off there, and that's right there in the end of the apprentice step. That's why most people don't understand that's the 4 points of interest, what it's actually alluding to. Okay, you know, this is the 4 points, which you'll also meet, you know, when you go to another house, you'll see the 4 again. He's talking about the astro, and get into astrotheology, and you start asking about the 4 zodiac signs, the 4 angels. All of these are connected. You put all of these together. That's one. For the yard, I mean, that's the 10th letter. That exceptionally special because it's in the 14th degree range. So I don't want to go too far because I don't know it's I don't want to go too far because I'll be on this call about 3-4 hours. So the first thing, especially the Delta, we find that Enoch would be the first, and he was given a vision. We all know the story behind it. It was given to him in a vision, and supposedly he had wrote down the characters of Yahad Vahi. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Yahad Vahi. Yeah.
Good to know, sir. Hello? You
Yeah.
lose me?
Can
Oh, you
hear me?
you good.
Okay.
Yeah, you good now.
Yeah. So and I started to read that he gave me it's called the Hebrew notebook or Hebrew workbook, and I absolutely, my mouth dropped. And you see, especially going back into that old episode y'all were talking about the yard, it absolutely blew my mind. And it's a couple of things that I did not know, and I had to go back and go all the way back to the beginning, this in the EA, and you see
I'm gonna make fun of you.
going on.
I'll make fun of you. Yeah, yeah, Oklahoma and the Louisiana water. They messing
Oh,
with your internet.
oh, they got him. They got him.
They messing with your
Nah,
internet.
nah, they know.
Man,
They know he's spitting the truth. They know he's spitting the truth. But man, no, Mike. But it's an interesting thing, man. Like seeing. So when we were when I was researching for our lecturer, and I think for the people that watch this and go over, whether you agree with our synopsis or not, the practice of going through your own research is vital for like the human condition, right? It's vital for the way that we grow as human beings. Because like there's some things I was going through and I was like, this is very interesting. And what you'll find out, even with that triangle, you'll see this sucker everywhere. Like I didn't realize how many things this triangle entails, and then I understand how deep a symbol can go. Like a yod is the smallest Hebrew letter, right? But it's like the spark, it's the flame, it's the hand of God. It's all this that's going on. And what's wild about this, like research, when I was going through it, is the message and the symbolism, and kind of like what Brother Malone said, is that you have to look at the language, then look at the people, and then you get back to like a better understanding of something extremely simple. So I would just challenge individuals, especially Masons, any symbol you see, you need to look at the multitude and the various applications of that symbol. And what you'll do is your mindset, like however you think, like whether you're a visual learner, like I don't know all the terminology, but it's like, hey, like to hear, listen, whatever that is, you'll find some way for that to communicate with you. And I think that's the universality of masonry, right? I think that's why people get really uncomfortable with masonry, because like when practiced correctly, it's a force to be reckoned with, because it allows you to even the playing field, but like allow you still to be an individual though. That's what I'm learning through this process. And ELH is like we're all so different, but we're so aligned in the same message and the same type of communication. But and that all just came from just thinking about the triangle and the yod. You know what I mean? Like look how far that went around, it's crazy.
And on that point,
oh, my bad, Chris. Go ahead, man.
if you let that yard be the center and you draw a straight line from each corner or each point of that triangle toward the center, now you have a three-dimensional object. You have what we call a prism. You shine light through a prism, what do you get? You get the colors.
Mhm.
So the same way, if you shine light through that prism, you get the colors. You shine consciousness through this prism or through this yard, you get the breakdown, the breakup of mankind. You take that divine consciousness, and now we all possess a spark of divinity. Why? Because somewhere in us, that spark of that yard, that smallest piece of divinity is able to shine that divine ray, that divine light, and emanate through us into our own consciousness. And that was just something, I thought of like a little bit after that. And because I'm a non-royal arch mason, I'm gonna keep that conversation on that low level while y'all go ahead and break it on down.
No, I'm like, hey,
Yeah,
I'm gonna put one thing on there real quick, Mike. That sounds like the void to me, but keep going. We talk about that later.
Yes.
hold on, wait. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what I was about to say. I was like, so that nexus point of consciousness, that point at y'all, like that, and that ray of light hits and it bounces off and it reflects in that prism. That nexus point is the void of consciousness, the void of enlightenment, the void where we realize and we come into self-realization into our body. Um, best way I can say it is when we dream, we contract into the void, and then when we awake, we expel back into our bodies. We do this constantly, every day, every night, when we go to sleep, when we wake up. When we die, it's going to be a long one. Buddhists, other philosophies believe we'll come back. Other people believe that void will be cut and will be lost in the void, or will travel through the void into another dimension, to where we don't know. But either way, that nexus point is that, like Brother Leonard said, is the void in the prism. Some prisms are considered they're transparent and clear, so they're clear and transparent. You can see through them. They're a crystal eye. Or you can have a black prism. Yes, a black prism. Something to do with melanin. Yeah, melanin refracts and controls light. And what is darkness? What is darkness? What is darkness? Everybody believes that darkness is something that is void of light, but actually, what darkness is actually compressed light. It's light of multiple spectrums. We can only technically see probably I think they said about 20,000 colors with the human eye, but the spectrum only determines it in about 7 different ways, kind of like the chakras. And I'll leave that to another subject. But the compressed light that we can't see comes off as being black. But that is because our consciousness aren't aware of those spectrums of light. So getting back to the delta, so in I believe in the Hasidic pantheon, or Hasidic version of the Jewish faith, Shabbat is what is Kether, Binah, and Da'at. Da'at is actually in the center with, I'm sorry, Hesed, Chesed. I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart right now. Chokmah, which is wisdom. Then Binah, which is understanding. Then Da'at, which is knowledge, which is hidden. Then you have Keter, which is above. So Keter, Chokmah, and Binah makes a supernal triad. Some, they call it the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, or Father, Son, and the Mother. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. So that supernal triad represents the body of consciousness. So that makes up consciousness. So when we have all those things and we put that yod, that spark comes within us, that's us. That's essentially us saying we're woke. In reality, that's the top of the tree. That's both pillars coming together as one. In masonry, the center pillar is broken, so most of us would never achieve that. So when we say we've achieved the level of the top of the sphere or the top of the tree, or the point actually within the circle, most of us actually have never contracted to that point of understanding. Most of us never will. I probably never will. We don't know, but I do understand that there's a contraction point, and that I will contract into a specific point in my life where I will have to leave this world. And essentially, the same goes for masonry. One day we'll have to learn our working tools and do other things with our lives, because masonry is here for us to learn from. It's not end all be all. And it's a great thing, but one day, we might have to give it up. But because we have other things to do with life, and that's just the honest truth.
And it leaves you so many breadcrumbs and paths and routes for you to further your studies and further your travels and to look and do elsewhere. And we have one comment from Brother Greenaway that says the Moors, which goes into Brother Malone's comment at the end of his last speech about language, is seeing that we all descend from African Lodge number one, which takes me to Brother Greenaway's lecture on the African roots of Freemasonry. And then I think it was amazing how in that particular lecture, we hear so much about Solomon, but how so much of this lore can be tied to, I want to say it was Akhenaten, who was that, and then you have the story of Moses, which can kind of be used for Tutmosis. And it's like we see so many of these things that are interconnected and tied back to, you know, Egyptian legends, Egyptian stories of Egyptian history, and even some that go, down into the Sudan. If you look at, we use, the Tetragrammaton. We find that in Tipa Soleb in Sudan. The nomads of Yahweh. Well, this is
Yeah, and
1300
it goes into
years,
Ethiopia.
Yeah. Yes.
and so we see these. And then the Bronze Age lecture with the Phoenicians considering themselves to be Ethiopians. Okay, well, that puts these Phoenicians as descendants of these same people. There's some interconnectedness there that we aren't exploring. But in that African lecture, it gave uh, so much data to go back and research that we could spend a good bit of time trying to put all of these breadcrumbs, all of these flags, all of these pennants together to make a more cohesive picture. And I think it's important that we take the time to not just focus on one particular thing in masonry, because I think that has become an issue with so many, is they become, one trick ponies. They have one thing that they do. They have one thing they're good at. And because they've mastered one thing, maybe they're a little bit ignorant of so many other things. So I think it's a lesson on, hey, let's try to be as diverse in our studies and understanding as possible, so we could be not only well-rounded Masons, but well-rounded men, well-rounded friends, well-rounded teachers, well-rounded students. So that's another benefit of having so much diversity in the panelists and the presentations and the data being offered. And I find that something wonderful that we may not see a lot.
Real
Yeah.
quick, I'm gonna interject just for the
Go ahead.
Masons out there. Real quick, I'm gonna interject. Ask yourself this question. A good brother asked me. He was like, "Why did those certain people try to make patches to that certain place?" Whoa, that's a whole nother ball game,
Right.
and that right there, bro. Like in Javon's lecture, gave me a little bit of feedback. I was like, okay, so these cats knew really what was going on, where some of the valuable information was, because I think it's interesting they talked about stuff that wasn't specifically just Egypt too. So I'm just saying.
But everything has to be put in context, right? Because as quote unquote students, we understand the interconnectedness of just life and history, right? So even when we think about certain catchphrases, that exist, when we put them in historical context, they mean something completely different. Imagine if I'm sitting in, El Kebulan, if I'm on the east coast of Africa in Kemet, right? Where, technically, historically, the places of knowledge were, and you have folk coming out of Asia and you ask them where they coming from, what they going to say? I'm coming from, and I'm traveling in search of, right? What is here? When you think about just geographically where the seats of knowledge were in Africa and where the places of darkness were historically, geographically, they were where? In the Northeast. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, when you take these, so even when we think about, for example, right, it's like, well, if the lodge is a microcosm of the world, what does that actually mean, right? if these tools that individuals are exposed to, if they're supposed to be implemented and actualized outside of the lodge, then we have to understand that there's a relationship between, right, what takes place inside of the lodge and what takes place outside of the lodge. Just like all of those other, as above, so below, as within, so without, right? And so we have to, we have to begin, back to Brother Williams. He says we have to ask why, right? Like, why the liberal arts and sciences per se, right? What is it that I am to understand or I am to gain by familiarizing myself with these particular bodies of knowledge? And how am I to use those bodies of knowledge to, inform my self-determination as a human? Right? If we're individuals that are invested in self-improvement and invested in traveling to that, that undiscovered country, then, naturally we have to entertain the truths that we come across. And I think, there come a time where we have to stop entertaining certain fanciful theories that we know are not grounded in truth. You get what I'm saying? And that is for our own growth as men, our growth as Masons, our growth as whatever religious body we ascribe to. We should apply, critical eyes or critical lenses and analytical lenses to the things that we engage in, because truth is our birthright, right? And it is, again, back to names and attributes. Another name of Allah is Al-Haq, right? He is the truth. And so if the creator, if the originator of all things is the truth, then naturally, right, we need to divest some time in connecting with the truth. And what does it mean to engage in understanding what the truth is? And how does that relate to my journey, to that undiscovered country? But yeah, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna read the comments, because I don't know if I'm still on topic or if we left.
No, we still good. We still good. So yeah, just getting back to the countries and things like that, and the research that Brother Javon got us on. He made me go into finding places like Sardonia and things like that. I didn't even realize that the roots of the origins of our stuff reached into Sardonia, and crossed multiple continents. But when it comes to, and these were Sudanese in these countries, Sudanese up in Northern Europe, or Southeast Europe, or however you want to put it. But north of us, but north of Africa, but North Africans in those countries traveling over there. We research, we find that most of, you can believe us or not, you do your own research, but you find that that region, the specific region of Jerusalem or Palestine, where the original inhabitants were of Sudanese descent. Yemen, the same thing, Sudanese descent. A lot of that area, they were dark-skinned folks originally, and through time, evolution, or whatever. And just mixture of cultures, and that was the Silk Road. So there was a lot of population, a lot of different movements, and a lot of different gatherings. Me and Brother Malone and Brother Bailey just talked about this the other day. It was like you had three different types of people in one particular region, but they were all considered the same. So you don't, but they all look different, but they were the same. So you really don't know. So we can't say what people are, or what they, who their culture came from, or in that particular region, because it was mixed then, it's mixed now. Some people were more embodied in a previous age, and they're less embodied in this age, and vice versa. So you know um, to each his own. The wisdom is there, but you research the Sudanese population. They were there for a long time, and that's my piece on that one.
Ah, man, like I said, I'm about to remember this. Truth is our birthright. That one, that was powerful right there. So we need to do something with that. That was fire. What I was gonna do here really quickly here, because I'm a bug Brother Leonard. So get ready, sir. I got a question for you. So, uh, for this time frame, for what you experienced, what has, I don't want to say changed because that's everybody asked that. I said, what has improved through your process of going through the things that we've seen through these lectures and this podcast and what was going on in 2022? Like, what's improved in like your understanding Masonic travels, all that good jazz?
Diversity and expansiveness of thought. So coming into the lodge, I came in 2019, still a fairly young Mason. You come in, especially if some of us we've studied other things before. We come in looking for, you know, some particulars, thinking, oh, we're going to get it, we might find it. But really, your entrance into the lodge is really just your platform into another type of curriculum. And so, being a young Mason, I remember seeing one of the lectures, and I want to say it was Michael Williams comment something, and I'm like, oh, who is this brother? And I tracked him down. I said, hey, I want to be a part of these conversations you guys are having. And so that led me to find, oh, there are so many other topics and subjects to discuss in Freemasonry. It's not just, what we find in a ritual. It's there within the ritual. So you have to take the time to understand these words, take the time to go and understand some of the context, like Brother Malone said, because we might understand this word means one thing today, but it meant something totally different to the people who spoke the language 500, 1,000, 1,500 years ago. So as we continue to study and uncover, it's allowed my expansiveness of thought to broaden at a level to where I don't think there's anything that I am not capable of entertaining Masonically. Why? Because there's so much diversity within these lessons, so much diversity, so many trains of thought. If you just take the time to look at them, and if we just look at the basic understanding of King Solomon's temple, well, think about it. We have one temple. They tell us how many fellow intricate princes are there. They tell us how many fellow crafts are there. They tell us how many master masons are there. But we had to think everybody else was there too. So it wasn't just the Blue Lodge at the temple. You had Royal Arts Masons. You had Royal and Select Masters. You had Knights Templar. You had these Scottish Rite Masons of every degree in some form of fashion represented in this temple. And so you had King Solomon, who was the king of the Jews. You had Hiram, king of Tyre or Tyre, who was Phoenician. You had Hiram Abiff, who is a mixture because his mother is of the tribe of Naphtali and his father is a Tyrian. So we have an intermingling and mixing of people. There's not just one people here, and there's not just one type of Mason here. So how can I be one type of person and one type of Mason and try to understand Freemasonry?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. See, now what we'll do is like, because that's going to kickstart this as we kind of wind this down, coming up on the hour mark here, is we're going to reach out to the panelists. We're going to get a little bit of understanding. And then, Mike, I'm going to have you bring us home. All right. So just get ready, sit back, relax. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have you bring us home. But um I'm gonna say this just because I want to give him his props. Grand Inspector General Bailey, I'm gonna let us know a little bit about like your experience here on our lectures, ELH 2022. Like, let us know some of the like kind of like your review of the year here, sir.
So the review of the year was it was eye-opening, and for esotericism is still brothers and across the water from United Grand Lodge of England, and I spoke, of course, Korea, where my home lodge is at, and it's not the topic y'all know is something that a lot of brothers don't like to dive into. You usually hear that's too deep. Where's that in the ritual? And this is a system veiled in allegory. So you have to understand that you have to seek further. And there's 4 levels of reading. There's 4 levels of digging into any type of literature that you're reading. It's just it's the and the blue and the red. I'm about to go to the ninth arch. So and then I would tell them that because they know I'm about to go a little bit deeper. What you guys were bringing this year made me dig in my crate. Like, and I don't, it's, you know, you're in masonry for so long and your brain is a muscle. So again, if you don't naturally, you're naturally going to wither faster than what you were before. That said, remember the days of thy youth. You have to understand that your body is made to labor. We're literally physically in the here also. So even this, like the yard one, I forgot which one Coney was going in on, and I was just watching that again this morning. It gets you out of your comfort zone. And some of us, again, you have to get to a level where you comfortable being uncomfortable. Your body literally is made to struggle. Your only way you become beautiful is through the struggle. Again, the universe exists off of contraries. So you don't know what something good is but you must, even your muscles, they only get stronger when you're using them, but you must stretch them. You must bring them to a point where they're uncomfortable for them to become stronger. That's in every aspect of your life. It ain't just one way or the linear way. Okay? And I like to quote Damien Jack on that one, you know, two birds, you know, a bird and a pigeon, both are birds, but see the world completely different. So, you know, and if you understand that, you know, but this year made me uncomfortable, and it made me dig. It made me question myself a little bit more what I thought, and that's one of my resolutions this year is to challenge my own thinking. And I use the word metacognition, and that's being aware of your own thoughts and your thought processing. So, you know, for brothers that's here on the line, or the ones that's here or here live on the chat, please take a look at that and being aware of how we actually think. The last thing I like to add to that is something I learned as a private in the Army. If you want to change your destiny, you change your character. But in order to change the character, change the habit. Change the habit, you have to change your actions. To change the actions, change your thoughts. Change your thoughts, change the words. You change the words, you have to change the symbol. Do you understand the symbol first? Everything has to come into play. And eventually you'll change your destiny. So all of these things in Freemasonry, all of these levels or degrees, this is what it's preparing you for. It's and eventually to change your destiny. To go, and Mike gave me a quote earlier this year to bring you back to your factory reset. With that, you.
That sounds like that could be a really good lecture about how you can change your thoughts and actions, but we'll talk about that later. I'm gonna go ahead and go to Brother Malone, if you don't mind, sir, talk a little bit about coming into, because like I said, you know, it's a member of ELH helping us out over here in like 2022 and kind of how you grew and some changes. And then after that, Mike I'll introduce you here, sir.
Instruction, education, instruction. That's where I'm at. That's what I tend to ruminate over most. Again, you know, back to language. Ilm is knowledge, you know, and al-alim is the most knowledgeable. And so in our pursuit of knowledge, we are pursuing the source of that knowledge, you know, as well. And there's a saying that we have in the Muslim community, "Al-ilmu qabla al-qawl wal-amal," that knowledge precedes speech and action. And so when we think of that, in terms of self-improvement, it requires that our actions are founded upon knowledge first and foremost. They're founded upon some truths, which require, again, some discomfort depending on our level of exposure and where we are in our journey, right? However, I think that is why we have the space that we have within our lodges, is to challenge one another intellectually, because as Brother Bailey just said, the thoughts are the catalyst behind all of the, actions and the ways in which we see ourselves in the world. And so, even when we think about what it means to be a master mason, or what it means to be an initiate, let's not even go to what it means to be a master mason, right? Like just what it means to be, an initiate. There is a paradigm shift that is expected occurs within the individual. And even when we think about, back to the delta, back to that equilateral triangle, and we think about the parts of man, his man, the body, the mind, the spirit, it is necessary that each part of man grow. Your spirit has to grow, your mind has to grow, your body has to grow. So our growth has to be, equal. You get what I'm saying? We can't just focus on building out muscles and, getting stronger. We can't just focus on, being bookworms and recluses and, staying in the house studying. We can't just, devote all of our time to, what everything has to be, again, in balance, right? Everything has to, even the brother was talking about wisdom earlier. Al-hikmah here, wada'a kulli shay fi makani. Wisdom is putting everything in its proper place, right? And so the pursuit of knowledge has to have a place in our lives. It has to have a place in our lodges. So that way, as individuals are exposed to these new truths, there's a space for us to wrestle with it and internalize it, and hopefully begin to, shift our character as a result of it. But if we don't have, spaces like that, then, Freemasonry will be a social club. It'll be, a spot for brothers to come and just kick it and party, and it will lose, in my humble opinion, right? This is just me. I think it will lose a lot of the intentionality in which it was initially created. So for me, I'm on, education. I try to stay in different study groups. I have my own little, study group. Not that I see myself as an educator for these brothers, but it's really just a space for brothers to build, challenge each other, bring books to the table, reading sessions, lecture sessions, and we kind of just, bounce ideas off of one another in hopes that we all grow as a result of, just being in community with each other. And so, Brother Barrett, that's what I hope to, continue taking into 2023 is focusing on instruction, focusing on education, and, turning that into action.
Oh, you said a mouthful, turning it into action, bro. So that's something else. 'Cause that's what this is all for. This is not all for naught. And then before I let Mike let you guys know and kind of walk through what we're getting ready to, what we have in store for you for 2023, I want to give a shout out to one of our panelists who is not here, Brother Coney Vaughn Sr. We said something to him earlier, but I want to say, since meeting this brother a couple years ago, he's thoroughly changed and impacted my Masonic career for sure. So I just want to make sure to be on record giving him a shout out here. My only review from 2022 is that I've learned how that I know so much that I don't know anything, right? So it's like there's all these different things you go in there, going back into like the Delta and Yah, doing that research, just the practice of going through that to learn. I text Mike and I was like, bro, it's crazy how this is called the Delta symbol, which is chemically is a representation for like change, which is fire. Then it has this alchemical symbol of fire. It's the same on the tree of life. It's a fire. Then it's talking about the hand of God and it ignites. Like, why all these things match up perfectly, bro? Like, it can't be a coincidence, bro. It's impossible. It's impossible, right? So it was just a fun, fantastic time, and I'm excited for the journey and the ride. I'm excited to grow our viewership and hopefully inspire other individuals to know that, hey, there's a safe community over here that if you study what they say, that kind of that weird stuff that is too deep, it's not in the ritual, that stuff. If you want to study that stuff, come holler at us, right? You know what I mean? This is the space where no topic is foreign, no topic is off limits. We can have a conversation as long as we respect one another. We're here to entertain and enjoy ourselves. So what we'll do really quickly here is I'm getting ready to introduce the man that put this all together. Oh, wait, hold on. Malone got his hand up. I'm gonna get go ahead, Malone.
Just real quick before you do
Yeah.
the introduction, because you said something about just going to different levels, and brother saying that's not in the ritual. But what we have to understand is that in terms of knowledge and understanding and learning, we kind of stay at the foundation in memorization. But there are levels, to learning. You have memorization, you have understanding, analysis, synthesis, evaluation, creation, right? And so if we only stay at memorizing, what do we understand from that? What can we analyze and connect to our lives from that? What synthesis can exist in other texts, right? Like how can we evaluate the quality of the text and, what's being, actually communicated? But again, I just wanted to like drop that before Mike, drops us off and we all like leave like this. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. It's like, yeah, brother say it's not in the ritual, but you have to do more. All right, like don't just be satisfied with memorizing. Because all right, if I ask, if your class has questions about it, like what do you tell them? I'm just saying, like what do you tell them? There's nothing sticky, bro.
Look, Malone say he not an educator, but we're not gonna believe them lives anymore. All right, I'm on record too. This ain't going nowhere. This on record. Sounds like a lecture too he's done before for Phenomenal Lodge, but we'll talk about that later. But I'm gonna introduce Mike, and like I was saying, is a couple years ago, this guy had this vision and he started talking and he created this space, and then this group became, and all this all spiraled out of this band's ideology and his thought process, just to give a space. Because telling a little bit about your story, Mike, is he told me that he was studying a lot of this stuff when he was 14 by himself. And I couldn't imagine being at that age, or even now as an adult, going through this without anybody. So instead of having other people go through this by themselves, he's created this space now, Esoteric Lighthouse, that we have. So again, I want to be sure I go on record giving his praise and let him know that we all here. This we're touching hundreds and thousands of people now, and a lot has to do with you, Mike. So real quick, I'm gonna let you give your 2022 recap and then usher us into 2023, sir, so we can get this ball rolling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that. You know me, man. This is me just living. I'm just a humble person. I don't care about all that hoopla. I just do it because this is what needs to be done.
And that's
I
why,
feel
and
that.
that's why I said it. See, that's why I said it, because he ain't gonna say it. He gonna be in the background. You never even know he did all this. But see, there you go,
Yeah,
Mike.
yeah. Like you said, for years it was. I'd be talking, and then I run into brothers like Charles Watson, Damian Jack, and then we start parlaying like Sovereign Grand Inspector General Eric Konahia, and getting to know these brothers. Um, past grand, oh, sorry, past master Honey, Marlon Honeywell. These guys, we grew up, talking, and I didn't have a lot of other people besides them and to talk to. And after a while, as our Masonic careers, we spread different ways. Then along, a few years go by, and brothers is like, hey man, I want to talk about some things. I'm like, well, I got some stuff I want to talk about too, and I don't have nobody to talk to about it. So let's create a space, and that's how we came up with ELH. And then the next, our little backyard talks says, hey man, we need to put this on camera. The world needs to hear what we have to say. So, and that, I believe that came from Brother Coney. He said the world need to hear what we got to say. He said we got too much to say, and they need to hear what we got to say. And I appreciate Brother Coney for saying that. But my safe space was a back chat. But moving on, 2022. 2022 was a pivotal year for us. We had our ups and downs. We had some challenges. We had some hiccups, and there we learned how to grow and devise a new strategy. And this new strategy is where we're coming forward this year. 2023, we're coming hard, and y'all better be ready because Brother Malone and Brother Malone and Brother Leonard and Brother Bailey, these guys here. Brother Bailey, he's a older generation brother, and we got a newer generation brother. So as you can see, you know, like I mentioned in my book, we meet on a level. You know, first degree, 33rd degree. We all the same. So what's in the 33rd degree? Blue Lives Brothers. What's in the first degree? Blue Lives Brothers. We all meet on a level. So I got a 33rd in here, and I got some Blue Lives Brothers in here, and we're going to talk about stuff that makes sense. So going over, and that was my first topic. It's called exposure. We exposing brothers to new thought processes and new ways of thinking, new philosophies. We did that in the first couple seasons, but this year we're going to drop a little deeper. We're going to hit it a little harder. We're going to hit home to make it resonate a little bit better for y'all. So it's going to be a lot of discomfort. Why? Because discomfort brings growth, like Brother Bailey said. That's muscle strength. That's how you enter the void. The void is discomfort. If you're not comfortable with discomfort, you're never going to grow. So what's the point of being spiritual? What's the point of being amazing if you're not going to grow? You're going to say you're going to go through degrees and you got those degrees and you didn't grow through those degrees. So we're going to give you that discomfort this year. So what are we talking about? We're talking about action. We're bringing actionable things that you can take and you can embody into yourself. You can practice day to day. Spirituality and masonry is a daily thing. It's not something you just go to a lodge on a Monday or a Tuesday and you just do. It's not like going to church or a mosque or something that you just do on a specific day. You know, this is something that you do 24/7. Yes, I said you practice masonry 24/7. You practice spirituality 24/7. That's why you have a 24-inch gauge, right? But the application of it, you say 8, but there's multiple ways of using that 8. And this year, we're going to show you how to divide 8 and 8. And that's by action. Again, what do we talk about? Ignorance, tyranny, and fanaticism. Most of this stuff goes around ignorance, tyranny, and fanaticism. We're going to dispel ignorance. We're going to dispel tyranny. We're going to dispel fanaticism. Because what does happen? What does that do? It creates ignorance. And that creates, not ignorance per se, but ill-informed brothers. And what we want to do is bring informed brothers to the table. We want informed brothers in lodges. We want informed men in the world. So what we're going to do is try to help dispel some ignorance. And it's going to be, again, discomfort. And guess what? You can do it. We'll show you where to get the research and we'll give you the information and we're going to provide sources. You see the hyperlinks on the side. You see the QR codes. This is where you can go directly to our sources and we're going to have them on our slides just like this. Some of the people we're going to have, again, said Brother Malone, Brother Leonard, and Brother Bailey will be doing some shows. We'll have Brother Ben and Jack. He'll be doing a show with us. And we're doing a collaboration again. We're doing the Prince Hall Think Tank Part 2 collaboration. And that's just some of the things that we'll be doing in 2023. But just to start off the next month, we have a special episode. It's kind of a two-part since it's Black History Month for America. And also Valentine's Day, we're going to do a two-pointer. We're going to cover a special man. His name is Pascal Beverly Randolph. Pascal Beverly Randolph was an American medical doctor, occultist, spiritualist, trance medium, and writer. He is notable and has perhaps first person to introduce the principles of erotic alchemy into North America. Again, erotic alchemy. So he was an African American, and we'll be talking about him next month on next month's show. For those who don't know what erotic alchemy is, we'll say the new age word sexual alchemy, just so you can be ready to understand where we're going with this. And like I said, 2023 is all about discomfort. So be ready for discomfort. Brother Barrett. Floor is yours, sir.
You know, this is the message that I needed too, because right now things at work are getting a little uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So let me grow, let me grow and get through this period. But no, all jokes aside, like I said, our goal here is to be able to allow people to grow, create a safe space for you, to do what hasn't been done before. So right now, from Esoteric Lighthouse, from us, from 2022, and thank all those individuals that even listen 1 minute of one of our shows. We appreciate you. Uh, we will do more. We will be better. We will impact more lives as we go through these things. And like I said, I'm just humbled and excited to be on that journey. So without further ado, that's it for 2022. It's dead. It's gone. 2023, here we come. So again, I appreciate y'all. And this is ELH signing out. Thank you.